Welcome to Dog on the Plot, and in this episode I'm going to share with you the one plant I wish I'd never introduced to my garden. It's been a while since we've been in the front garden. It's been a while since I've been in the front garden. As you can see, it's gone rather wild. Now, this area is supposed to be my kind of mini food forest. And indeed, there's lots of edibles within here. And what I tried to create in this area is a selection of plants that would support one another and create this kind of thriving growing space and full of biodiversity. And one of the plants that I introduced to help with that is this. This is tansy. Tansy is an herbaceous perennial that attracts beneficial insects, but at the same time repels pests. So it sounds like the ideal plant to have in an area like this. And it's particularly good for going with things like berries, which is why I put it near my raspberries here. Unfortunately, it stinks. It absolutely reeks. And I think I've said in the past that I feel like it smells like cat pee. And that's not a very pleasant thing to have right here at the front of your house, and indeed right at my front door. So every time somebody comes to my front door, they get a lovely whiff of this tansy. Now, the smell is not the only thing that makes this a troublesome plant. As you can see, it flops right over because it grows super tall. I thought it grew about 60 centimeters when I put it in. No, the spread is 60 centimeters. The height is about 1 meter, as you can see here. In fact, here at the front of the plot, you can see it's actually taller than me. And if that wasn't bad enough, it self-seeds, but it also spreads through rhizomes under the ground. So all in all, this was a mistake. It's one of my biggest regrets, not only of the front garden, where it's completely taking over, but also I have it in the back garden as well, because the first year that I started growing in these spaces, I thought, I want this, magic herb in my garden that's going to bring in all of these lovely insects and repel things that I don't want. And I mean, it looks okay if you like yellow. It's got this kind of nice button flower, but yeah, I really, really now wish I hadn't put it in. If you've got a big space, then it probably has a place. It does not have a place in this small space. So with that in mind, I've got an hour this morning. I've got my timer. I'm going to do a power hour, and I'm going to try and get as much of it out of this space as possible. I don't think right now I can dig it out because the ground is going to be too dry and hard, but I can at least cut it back, stop it self-seeding, and then in the autumn, I'm going to try and dig out the roots. The area needs more than just the tansy dealing with. There are a lot of weeds in here. It has been super neglected, but I'm going to give myself the hour, and I'm just going to see how much I can get done. Minutes in, and that's almost all of the tansy out. I just left one little sprig because it's standing up straight, and it's away from the front of the house, so I've not got the smell. So it can stay there for now and hopefully do its job, which is the attracting of the insects, the repelling of the pests. But at least it's away from the front of the house now, so people who are coming to my house don't have to smell it, and I can open my front windows and not wonder what has died. So now that that is done, I think the next stage is to think about weeds, but also these. These are my raspberry canes. They are, I believe, summer fruiting raspberry canes, but the fruit on them was, well, it was just so disappointing, to be honest. I'd cut them all back in the year before last, thinking they were autumn fruiting, got nothing. This year, let the first year canes, second year canes, last year's canes grow, which that's what happens with summer fruiting. You get your fruit on the previous year's canes. So I did that. Yeah, the fruit was small, mealy. It doesn't look particularly attractive. So I'm thinking I'm going to cut out all the old canes, which you would do anyway for summer fruiting, see what the new canes look like and whether possibly they might be autumn fruiting. If not, at the end of this season, I'm getting rid of the whole lot. Okay, I'm sad to do it because it is nice to have raspberries here, but if they're not producing, then they're not earning their space. So, right, old canes out. Now, it's not that tricky to determine which of the canes that need to come out. These lighter green ones with no fruit or remnants of fruits are the new ones. And then these darker ones where you can see some of the old fruits up there are the ones that need to come out. If you are unsure, you can just leave it. And once you've taken out what you are sure of, it should then be pretty evident. When it's a bit congested like this, it can be a bit tricky. She says, having pulled out a new cane. Halfway point. And how much better does that look? That's so much nicer. You see, I think there's summer fruiting because they're just so tall. But that's a lot to have where I have put these. When I thought they were autumn fruiting and that they could all be cut down at the end of the year, it made much more sense to have these here. So yeah, we'll see what happens. But I think in autumn, tansy out, raspberries out. The thing with the raspberries, of course, is just like the tansy, it spreads through rhizomes. So I can see it popping up all over the bed. So I may never get rid of it now. Right, I think for my last 25 minutes on the clock, I'm going to try and tackle some of the weeds in here. And also some of these hollyhocks have fallen over. So I'll either stake those or they can come up. But even having just taken out the tansy and the raspberry canes, I'm starting to uncover some of the things, some of the treasures that are in this food forest. And yeah, when we finish all this, I'll show you around. Oh. Love it when it does that. Don't waste the wood chip. Not bad, I don't think. It's looking a lot better. Not perfect, obviously. But some of the things that I wanted to point out is, first of all, look at these raspberry canes. They are so sturdy. Now, I know people say about using raspberry canes as supports or pea sticks, but I've never felt that mine were particularly strong. But these bad boys, so I shall strip off the leaves and keep those for next year. The rest of this, of course, will go in the compost heap. It won't be sort of wasted. It will be composted down and may end up back on this bed, although some of the problems with doing that is that you do get very particular weeds. A Aegean weed is one that's particularly bad, and I get brambles because blackberries and stuff fall into that compost heap and, yeah, contaminate it. So, oh well, that's one of the things you kind of have to contend with if you're making your own compost. However, talking about self-seeding, this is Amimagus. And this is self-seeded in this area. I might have put it in 3-4 years ago, and now it quite readily self-seeds here and in the back garden, which is lovely because Amimagus is a beautiful flower. So you might have seen me do this with the foxgloves and the hollyhocks. I shall just kind of sprinkle, oh, dropped it, the seeds around a little bit and hope that we get even more next year. Now, that was a pretty productive power hour. I am happy with that. But a power hour is never just a power hour when you're filming. So I have gone a little bit over time. I need to hotfoot it. It is our local summer fete this morning. So I'm going to go collect Mum and we're going to head there. I shall take you with me. But when we get back, I want to show you some of the things that I've uncovered in the food forest. And we'll worry about this later. Welcome back. I've had a second power hour on the front and finished up a lot of the weeding, especially around the paths, which is a little bit more boring. So I've saved you that. But as I said before, I do want to give you just a quick look at some of the things that are going on in the front garden now that the tansy and the raspberry canes are out of the way. I mean, the first thing that I've discovered is I have a cat living in here. Hello. Hello, you're pretty. Yeah, so this cat seems to have made itself at home. I suspect he's not going to be quite so happy now that there's not so much undergrowth to hide in, but that was a little bit of a surprise. So we're going to scare him off now as we go in, but I want to show you that my gladioli has come out. And how pretty is that? It's on a little bit of a lean, so I shall probably cut that and bring it into the house. My Mexican fleabane is doing absolutely brilliantly, and I love it. I cannot say how much I love this stuff. I've got another big ball of it there. I think I want to move some of this onto the plot to put between the paving stones. Tontine kale is doing great. So no massive caterpillar damage on it as yet. You know what I was thinking though? That maybe it was the tansy that was keeping the cabbage whites off of the tontine kale. So yeah, if it gets absolutely mullered by caterpillars now, that'll be my fault. So these are the raspberry canes. So this is what they're looking like. I mean, there's no hint of fruits on those now. So I do not think it can be autumn fruiting. And I've really just got to dig all of this out. But oh my goodness, that's going to be such a huge job come autumn. But we'll worry about that then. What else? Now this in the middle here is the Korean mint or agastache. It's a white one and it's beautiful. If you remember, I put one of these, a purple one, on the plot just the other week. And this is the one that I have in the front garden. Behind it is the tree peony. Now, some of you, last time I showed you the front garden and I mentioned the tree peony, you were like, no, Kerry. Some of you said it was a maple. Some of you said, oh, I can't even remember all the things that you were telling me it was, and not a tree peony. You know what it was? There was something in front of the tree peony. So that thing I did pull out, but this is the tree peony. It hasn't done much. It has grown, but it's not flowered as yet, but it does get swamped by other things. Other things, we've got the pink currant here, so that's done fruiting, but there was a good harvest on that. The apple tree here has been very disappointing. Every single apple was damaged, so I pulled them all off so that the tree can concentrate on growth and roots rather than ripening fruit that would have been no good. So that's a shame. We'll see if it does any better next year. Over here, oh, interestingly, we have asparagus just randomly growing in there. I mean, not that randomly, I did plant it. That was the asparagus that I grew from seed. Also grown from seed is my Victoria rhubarb. I think that's what it was. So that's looking fine. Nice healthy leaves. We've got more raspberry canes. And then we've got the dahlias. These are Bishop's Children dahlias. Lovely. This was a plant that was originally given to me by Cherry. I'll put her handle below on Instagram. She has a lovely little shepherd's hut on her land. And Liam and I stayed there during the heat wave that we had a couple of years ago. So it was like 40-degree heat and we're in this tiny shepherd's hut. Boy, that wasn't fun. We actually left a day early because we couldn't stand it. But it's a beautiful little shepherd's hut. And she's got gorgeous gardens that she opens for the National Garden Scheme. I hope she still does. And she runs workshops and things like that. So anyway, she's in Monmouth in Wales. Now, the other thing that I've mentioned the last time we were in the front garden was that I do have gooseberries in here. Just like the raspberries, these are from my cousin's garden. And look, we have gooseberries on this year. Now, I have big gooseberry plants in the back garden. I had a nice harvest from those that are now in the freezer. But these ones, oh, that is so sweet. Lovely. Love homegrown gooseberries. Right. Anything else I want to show you? I think that's probably it. I mean, it's very much a work in progress as a food forest. I mean, you're supposed to have like the canopy layer and you go down layer by layer until you've got the ground cover at the bottom. And so I've got the trees that are meant to be the canopy and I've got the strawberries that are meant to be the ground cover and all the bits kind of in between and the perennial kale. But yeah, it's not quite all clicking together yet. But it is a nice mix of things. I am pleased to have edibles in the front garden. I mean, I loved it when I had this as a pumpkin patch as well. But yeah, as I say, a work in progress, but so much better than it was this morning when I was just packing my bag to go to the fete and I was looking out on the view. I was thinking, oh my God, that's so much better. And I'm sure my neighbour thinks so too. So Yes, very happy with that. I think that was a job well done today. Now I'm going to head up to Derby, so I shall meet you at the plot in a day or two. Well, we're having a repeat of last week. I've just got here and I am sure that my fix for the arch has not worked. Oh no. Well, that is definitely worse. Oh my goodness, look at it. Oh no. Oh dear, it's completely come apart. Look at that. Oh no. Oh, look at my beans. God. How did it not take this sunflower out? Oh man, what am I going to do about that? And where my wildflowers, the cottagey flowers are. I knew that this video was going to be about regrets. I didn't think it was going to be about this, but I super regret putting in arches that were already broken. Super regret. I can't stand it. Right. I think maybe put a pallet up against it. I know I had the funny music on when I was doing it last week because it was only, you know, just a little skew if, and you know, I could be light-hearted about that. But this feels like proper disaster territory. I'm worried about the front arch now as well because that doesn't seem too secure. Definitely feel like when I was thinking about this plot, I was thinking that the wind goes in this direction, but it doesn't. It comes this way. So the arches would have been better the other way around because the wind would go through rather than against. Well, this is what happens first year on a new plot. You have to learn some lessons. If I can keep it up just for the next 2 months, that seems like a long time now, but enough for everything to ripen, I'll be happy. I mean, I'm not happy. I'm really not happy. But yeah, I would accept that. Wasn't even meant to be windy today. Oh, sorry to be a bit of a Debbie Downer. I've come in here because it's too windy out there for recording, especially when I haven't got a mic. I will try and enunciate. Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, that is not a big deal. It's not a big deal, Dory. It would have been way worse if glass had come out of the greenhouse. Yeah, because then that's expensive to replace and we could get glass in your little paws. So yes, it's not such a big deal really. It's not the bloody arches themselves. Couldn't care less about them. They're like a tenner each and clearly not very good. But it's the crops that are growing over them, and those pumpkins are doing well, and I want them to get to maturity. I said this last week, didn't I? Hey ho, it is what it is. Yeah, I've done the best that I could do. I can't think of any other way. And thank goodness I had those pieces of trellising. But yeah, I can't think of any other way that would have the weight behind it to keep it up. The good thing is that trellising could stick behind where I put the slates in for the wood chip paths. So they're kind of anchored against something and then going at the angle against it. But yeah, it's going to be no good if all of the joints on the arches just break, because they rust. This is the thing with these arches, they just rust. I don't know about arches for next year. I got 2 new ones in the greenhouse that I couldn't be asked to put together. So they're waiting in the wings. Obviously all the ones in the home garden broke. So if we're in a video about regrets, and this was not the regret, as I say, I intended to talk about, then yeah, cheap arches is one of my regrets. I think it's fine in the first year. They manage a year, but after that, if you try and push it to another. All right, anyway, I'm going to cheer myself up with the tomato. All that talk last week of thoroughly enjoying the allotment and all the joy it's bringing. Oh, those are just coming off. Yeah. How the tables turned so quickly. Anyway, we cheered ourselves up last week with some tomatoes from the Polly, and there's some. Oh, actually, these are ready. You wouldn't know it, but they are. Let me show you. How's that for an unusual tomato? It's easy to miss, isn't it? And I text Claire and asked her, when will I know when the white queen is ready? And she was like, oh, I don't know. I haven't got any that's ready yet. And then she looked in her polytunnel and indeed she had some that was ready. I know this one is ready because it's split all the way around, but very juicy. The juice is coming out of it. But there you go. Yeah, white queen. Right, I suppose I better do what I actually came down here to do. Sorry, distracted by Dory, who's made her way out of the greenhouse, and waters the tomatoes. That was what I was here for. It's what I'm always here for, watering tomatoes. Now, the last time I showed Francis's harvest on the channel, I got in trouble because I didn't show the stew that he made with the ingredients that he'd harvested from the plot. So I'm correcting my mistake, and here are the pies that he made with the potatoes, the carrots, the onion, and the rosemary that he harvested from the plot. Apparently they were very delicious. I wouldn't know, I didn't get one, but he gave them 10 out of 10. Now, what didn't quite get 10 out of 10 from Francis were my beetroot brownies. I thought they were delicious. Liam really liked them. Mum said a bit dry. I'm going to share the recipe below, but with the caveat that I did change the recipe because I used beetroot that I had got from the juicer. So it was beetroot pulp rather than cooked beetroot that had been pureed. So I did change up the recipe a little bit. I'm going to continue to work on it and try and perfect it so you get that kind of nice, really fudgy brownie. Francis's complaint was that it stuck to his teeth, but I'm like, that's what brownies should do. They should stick to your teeth. Now, other things that I've been making this week, well, I went to the plot and I finally harvested the chamomile flowers that I've been meaning to do for ages, and I was really worried that I was missing my window. Anyway, I got a good bag full and I brought them home and I've now dried them on this little tray. I've just air dried them. I didn't put them in the dehydrator. They look pretty dry now. I'm going to leave them out for a little bit longer before I put them in a jar, and they'll be used for tea. The other thing that I've started this week is pickling my cucumbers. The cucumbers started coming thick and fast. So I actually ferment mine. So it's not a vinegar solution in here. It's a brine, it's a saltwater solution. I also put in, I didn't have any dill, so I used fennel. I put chili, garlic, black peppercorns, mustard seeds, and a bay leaf, because apparently a bay leaf keeps the pickles crunchy. And these fermented on the counter for 4 to 5 days. There was bubbles, the liquid has gone cloudy. Those are all signs that the fermentation process is happening. And I tried my first one last night. I had it on a burger. It was delicious. So they are ready and they can now be stored in the fridge to store the fermentation process. That was all good. Now, if you're wondering why I have shoeboxes on my kitchen counter, it's because I did a job today that I've been putting off for a while, which was sorting out the onions and the garlic that had been drying in the shed at the back of the garden. It's been hot today. It's the second day of 30 degrees plus Celsius, and I set up in the shade and I just went through all the garlic and all the onions, sorted out what needs using first and what can be hopefully stored. So I've got some onions that I put for storage. I've got some there to use quickly. That's probably my best onion. The rest look pretty ropey. I'm not going to push my luck. I'm going to use them fairly quickly, and I am going to keep my eye out for the allium leaf miner. Then I've got my elephant garlic, which was a really lovely harvest. Plenty of elephant garlic, plenty for next year too. Some really nice big cloves as well. You do store elephant garlic as cloves rather than bulbs, simply because the bulbs are very large and it's hard to dry all the way through to the core. So if you have them as cloves, you're more likely to get a nice dry clove. Plus, they store absolutely fine like this. In fact, I've got some here that are cloves still from last year, and they are absolutely fine. So that was the elephant garlic, and then the regular garlic, not as big as last year's, but when I look at it like that, I think, you know what, that's absolutely fine. When it's all cleaned up and trimmed, yeah, quite happy with that. And again, there'll be plenty of seed, like with the elephant, for next year. So that was my August eating update for this week, but I did promise you a dish, and actually, the tagine that I made at the end of last week's episode, there was such a nice response to it in the comments, and some of you said you'd actually made it and really enjoyed it, so that was lovely. And I've actually now opened up my community page so that you can post on that page without having to just comment on my posts. So if you're doing August eating and you're making dishes and you want to add them to the community space there, then you're more than welcome. I'd really love to see what it is that you're making, especially with courgettes. So I've got a few courgettes here. I teased last week a courgette bake that I make. I also put this on the community page. It's a super simple dish. It only uses stuff really that you would have about, including courgettes, tomatoes. If you've got a tomato glut now, this is a good way of using those as well. I'm not quite in glut territory, but I am starting to get a few. I also grabbed, while I was getting the tomatoes, a bit of basil from the plot, but you don't really need that. And it's a kind of recipe where you can add all sorts of things extra, or you can just keep it super simple. So I'm going to do pretty much the basic recipe right now. And yeah, let me know in the comments whether this is something that you enjoy in the videos and you want me to include more of. Okay. So this starts as all good recipes start, which is with garlic. This is like lazy garlic that I made with some of the garlic that needed to be used right away when I first harvested it. This has been in the fridge in some rapeseed oil now for a few weeks and it's absolutely fine. And then some onion. So this is one of the onions that I cleaned up today. Now you can just put that on a low heat and gently fry that off while we get the rest of the ingredients ready. This is a good little trick. If you're adding tomato paste to a dish, always put it in to like fry it off first, and that will intensify the flavour. The tomato paste isn't essential. You can just go straight in with your fresh tomatoes. You can also use tin tomatoes or, and I think I will add some to this, a little bit of passata because my tomatoes are very yellow and I want them to be a bit redder. Right, I can just stay on the heat and let the tomatoes break down, and I'm just cutting my courgettes into fairly thin rounds. Now, before you add the courgettes, you can put in all sorts of things into the base of this dish. I often put in a tin of mixed beans to up the protein, especially if I'm having this as the full meal as opposed to a side dish. Today, I have sweet corn left over from yesterday's burger. So I'm gonna pop that in there. And then I've also got some kale. I've actually never put kale in before, but when I was getting some stuff out of the freezer this morning, I noticed that I'd done these little squares of kale. So when I had the polytunnel full of brassicas, I harvested this and I froze it in one of these little large ice cube trays. So I've got all these little cubes of kale in the freezer. So I'm going to add that today. Once you have whatever you fancy or whatever you need to use up in the pan, you can start then to arrange the courgettes on the top. Just take that down a little bit so it doesn't spit at me while I do it. Now, you can do this fancy, or you can do this just by throwing it all in on the video. So I'm going to be a little bit fancy and place them just overlapping around the dish. Oh, I should say that this is an oven-proof dish, but if you have done this in a saucepan that won't go into the oven, then you need to transfer the base into an oven-proof dish before you start arranging the courgette on the top. Okay, once all the courgette is in, you can decide how decadent you want to make this. I'm making mine incredibly decadent because I have loads of this Elmley plant-based brandy cream. It was being sold off at the supermarket because it ain't Christmas, and I bought loads of it because I can't resist a bargain, and plus it's really nice. It's perfectly fine for savoury dishes, even though it's got the brandy in, you can't really taste it. So I'm going to use that, but you could make a bechamel, you could just put cheese on top or breadcrumbs or something like that. But yeah, something else to add a dimension to the top of the dish. So I'm going to go in with the cream. In fact, what I'm going to do is mix the cream with just a little bit of nooch. Nooch, if you don't know, is nutritional yeast, and it's what us vegans eat to make things taste a little bit cheesy. So I'm going to put that in, and then let's put some of the basil in there as well. But I can put some of this fresh on the top when it comes out of the oven. Okay, so that just goes over the top. And then I'll do a little bit of black pepper just to finish. And now it just goes into the oven. At the weekend, when I was at Liam's, I did put vegan sausages all over the top as well, and that was absolutely delicious. He mopped that up, but tonight I'm just keeping things simple. So now that will just bake for 20-25 minutes. It's on about 200 degrees Celsius, and basically you just want it nice and brown on top and that courgette to be lovely and tender. But as I said before, it's a super versatile recipe. You can add all sorts of things into that mix. You can do different things with the topping. You can add things to the top. But yeah, it's a real staple of the summer for me. I hope you enjoyed that. I will show you the finished dish at the very end. In the meantime, thank you for watching. I hope to see you next week. Take care.